This house is from 1987. Let's go inspect it. Now, it goes without saying that a house that's 40 years old is going to have its fair share of problems. Some of these things are to be expected. Of course, it's not going to be up to current standards, but as inspectors, we're going to kind of point all of it out. And as a buyer, you have to determine what you can deal with, what you want to ask for repairs or money back on, and what you can repair while you live in the home. All I've done at this point is get the house ready to inspect. I've turned on the lights, I've ran some hot water and taken some temperatures. I got the heater running inside, but I really haven't done any inspecting. That really starts when I come outside, and it all starts here on the front porch. And the first thing is we look around at any penetrations and make sure that they are sealed. And these are not, which is something that's very common to find on an older house. We have a light fixture and we have an electrical receptacle over here that's not sealed to the wall. These aren't going to be challenged by much water, but still I would suggest getting a nice sealant and putting it around them. Now, this works. When I go over here to this receptacle, of course I test it and I test the GFCI function, and in this case it does. I don't hear it, but it did trip, and so that means that it's functioning properly. As we go through the inspection, hopefully we'll come across the reset. Now, as I'm working my way across the front of the house, I can't help but notice that the roof just looks aged. It looks like there's been a ladder at various edges of the roof and it's caused a little bit of damage. Also, we've got a lot of pine needles and debris up there. We also have the drip edge that seems to be bent up. So there used to be gutters here, but they took them down. That probably has something to do with why the shingles are all banged up. But overall, the roof looks pretty old. It's probably gonna be due for replacement soon, but I'm not gonna make that call until I get up there and take a look. One thing I noticed is that the grading seems to slope downward over there, and it's probably because we don't have gutters. Water's coming down this area here, down this valley, and just beating this area of the soil here, and it's made it low, and now it probably collects water when it rains. We don't want any of the area around your structure to collect water, so that we're definitely going to notate in the report, because they need to do something about either installing gutters and or redirecting water away from the structure. Now, I live in the Houston, Texas area, and right now it's the fall. But honestly, it's between 70 and 80 degrees outside. So there's very few times that we actually get cold, and very few times that we don't actually need to run our sprinkler system to keep everything green and growing. And so when you walk up to a sprinkler system like this, which I find this one to be unplugged, it's loose from the wall, the control box looks to be very new, but whenever I find it, no matter what time of the year it is, whenever I find it unplugged, I can usually guarantee we're going to have some sprinkler problems, but we're going to inspect the rest of the exterior of the property and then come back and check out the sprinkler a little bit later and see how it's working. I will, however, test this outlet, because that is what this plugs into. We want to make sure that since this is in the garage that it's GFCI protected. The green light means that it's working, but it looks like it is not GFCI protected, so obviously we got to do something about that. It's important for us as inspectors to be thorough. So we have an electrical receptacle over there. We have one right here, and I want to test this one too. And whenever I test this one, it appears to be inoperative. Now, I have some choices about how I write this up in my report, right? Because I could write it up as inoperative. But just because one of the receptacles in the garage is not GFCI protected, it doesn't mean that this one isn't, and that it isn't tied into the front porch. That actually is very common. And so before I write this up as inoperative, I'm going to check and make sure that we don't have a reset somewhere that might restore power to this outlet. Coming around to the right side of the house, and we have our first hose bib here. Now, a couple things about it. Of course, just like the front porch, we need to seal around it. Like I say, something that's pretty normal to find. But the other thing is it lacks an anti-siphon device. And so the anti-siphon device is what helps keep dirty water from going back into your water supply. If you were to have a hose hooked up to this and it was laying in a low spot of your yard, maybe there's some water out there. You know, we fertilize our yard. There's a lot of things in our yard we don't want in our water supply. In theory, that could create a vacuum, suck some of that back into the water supply. We don't want that. And so the anti-siphon device works as a check valve to make sure that doesn't happen. It's not a surprise to see that they're not installed in a house of this age, but we do suggest that they get installed. Now, we're going to check the pressure to make sure that everything's good. And when we do, we're getting proper pressure. We want it to be between 40 and 80 PSI, and so this is right in the middle, and so we're good on water pressure. We are going to continue to check the pressure at all of the hose bibs throughout the rest of the exterior of the house, but really more or less just to check and make sure that there are leaks. We want to make sure we have even pressure, but as we check them, we are also checking to make sure that we don't have any leaks or anything. Here's the second indicator that we might have a sprinkler problem. The rain sensor is just hanging here in disarray. Yeah. Once again, I think we have some sprinkler issues. Now, I haven't ran the AC yet, but we have an American Standard 2024 unit. It is a 5-ton. It's rather large for this size house. I am not equipped to determine whether or not a AC system is too large for the house or too small for the house. That's going to take some calculations that I can't provide. However, on an older house like this, it's not nearly as airtight as the homes we're building these days, and so it's not abnormal to see a large AC on a house of this size. But what there is to like about it is that it's relatively new. Now I still have to run it. Right now, like I say, I'm running the heater. We'll run this a little bit later and check the performance. But one thing I'm seeing on this side of the house is a lot of wood rot. We have some wood siding up here, and we have a few different areas where we're seeing a little bit of wood rot. Of course, degradation of wood siding over time, that's pretty normal. But the one thing that concerns me more than anything is that it can be a conducive condition for wood destroying insects. And so I have to notate that since this is an older house and the clients have asked me to do a wood destroying insect inspection today, I need to notate that we have some wood rot, because that and various other things that we find throughout this house can be a conducive condition or a favorable condition for wood destroying insects such as termites and carpenter ants. Now we're coming up on the one and only breaker box on the house. And to be honest with you, after opening it up, I really don't have a lot negative to say about it. There are some things, however, that don't meet current codes, such as the fact that we don't have any arc fault protection breakers in there. Now again, the age of the house, I'm not surprised to not find any of that, but it is a safety issue, and we are required as inspectors to notate that that isn't there. There is one thing, however, whenever I get close and look, I start looking at all of the breakers and all of the sizes of all the wires going to them, and it's not labeled very well, so I can't exactly determine what this 30 amp breaker goes to. However, a 30 amp breaker usually would have a 10 gauge wire connected to it, and this one has a 12 gauge wire connected to it. So technically, that breaker, depending on what it's connected to, the breaker is oversized for that wire, meaning too much current can get to that wire, and it could cause that wire to melt, and it's a potential fire hazard. So obviously that's something we want to get looked at by an electrician to make sure, what does it operate, is it safe, and do we need to change the breaker size? Other than that, this box is in pretty decent shape. Now I'm at the back porch. Actually, I'm on the back deck. The deck is actually showing a little bit of signs of wear, but nothing too terrible, nothing worth showing you in this video. Now I do have a receptacle here, and I test it and I don't get any power. This leads me to believe that when I trip that front porch outlet, that it probably controlled this one too. And now that I know that I've got two of them that aren't working, I'm gonna go see if I can find a GFCI reset somewhere and see if I can restore power. After a quick stroll on the inside of the property in the master bathroom, I found a tripped GFCI outlet. And so I reset that, and then I returned to the outside to see if power has been restored. And as you can see, when we look at the outlet, we have the green lights are back, and we do have restored power. So that reset is what probably controls all the exterior receptacles. Now this property has a shed out back, and you know, not any real big deal, right? It's just a shed, but you talk about wood rot and termite conducive conditions. I mean, this is like a haven for them. Now, with that being said, I've gone through it and I can't find any active termites or anywhere where termites have been, but obviously this place has really seen a lot of water damage. Now, while I was back here on the back porch, I saw something that caught my eye. Back over here, we have the range hood exhaust. And I know this because I had it running and exhaust was coming out of it. But we also have another termination that looks like a range hood exhaust. This kitchen has been remodeled. Obviously, this kitchen is not from 1987, right? So we've had a full remodel done, and I think at some point it could have been that the range hood was actually routed to go out this direction. This window kind of looks like it's out of place. It looks like maybe it was put in after the fact. Usually when windows are put in brick, they are set in. We've got a lintel above them. This one looks like maybe it was added a little bit later. And so maybe they just remodeled a whole bunch of things over here, including the placement of this window and the range hood exhaust, or at least the range hood exhaust termination. So I came over here and I tried to open it up. So what happens when I open it up is you can see that there really isn't anything there. It's just a hole. There's no duct. There's just a hole in the house. There's no insulation. It's just open. And so if you're going to not use this termination anymore, it's really advised that you seal it up. It's perfectly okay if you want to relocate the vent termination, but you should seal up the old one. We need to replace the sheathing, we need to replace the insulation, remove the vent, replace the siding, put some type of patch up here, but we don't want things getting in. At this point, anything can get in. Rodents, birds, definitely air, and probably moisture. All right, that's pretty much it for the exterior of the house, except for the roof and the sprinkler. So before I get the ground all wet, I'm gonna go ahead and get up on the roof and let's see what it has to offer. We've already seen it from ground level, but I imagine it's gonna look a little bit different whenever I get my feet on the roof. Now at this point, I can see along the edge here that we have some damage. So I am going to strategically place my ladder so that it just lands right where some of that previous damage was and I don't cause any other damage to the shingles, even though The roof, I feel like, is in pretty rough shape overall, but we don't want to cause any additional damage. So let's go. From roof level, it just gives us confirmation of what we saw down there at ground level, and just that this roof is older and showing signs of age. This vantage point allows us to assess better the amount of granular loss and shingle damage this roof is experiencing, and plus we can get a good look at all of this debris that's collecting on the roof. This is a heavily wooded area with a lot of mature trees, and usually these lead style vent covers get eaten up by squirrels, but surprisingly enough in this case, these are all in pretty good shape. But as we take a little bit closer look at the shingles, they really start to show some damage. So we can see some wear and tear. I don't know if this is from like hail damage or it's just pitting and more granular loss that's happened. These shingles are just old, brittle, and worn out. They're not doing their job very well. And if it's not causing any leaks, trouble's right around the corner. It's time for replacement. Now this view is pretty much the same, except we can actually start to see some of the fiberglass mat coming through from where the granules have worn off. It's just an indication again that this roof has seen the end of its life. Now taking a look at things other than just the shingles, we can see this fascia right here started to rot. They've painted it recently, but it's quite spongy. If I wanted to, I could put my thumb right through it. All right, with the roof inspection completed, it's time to run the sprinkler system. Now I'm gonna plug it in. I still don't have much faith in this, but let's just see what happens. As you can see, nothing is running anywhere. I've already been in the backyard. Now, as I said before, this isn't really that much of a surprise. It was pretty much in complete disarray. The control box was unplugged and loose. The rain sensor is just dangling by the wires. And furthermore, when I went in the backyard, I found the backflow preventer, and the control knobs for it were completely missing. My guess is they probably had some type of winter event where the backflow preventer got busted. They shut it off, probably with a pair of pliers because the handles were broken, and now it just doesn't function. So obviously somebody's got to come out here and take a look at it. Let's go inside and see what we can find inside this house. So one thing I noticed right when I got here was this switch right here doesn't seem to do anything. It's got a dimmer on it, but nothing seems to happen no matter what I do. However, the switch up here at the top of the stairs operates this light. Now, when I come back down here after having that on, this is what happens. Now with that switch in the on position, I can actually operate the light at the top of the stairs, but the dimmer still doesn't work for some reason. So clearly we have a wiring issue between this switch and that switch, because no matter what configuration they're in, each one should operate that light, no matter what. All right, let me take you through the rest of this house and the attic, the bathrooms, and some other areas, and show you some of the other things I found real quick. Up in the attic, we find the water heater here, and this is the temperature and pressure relief line. It is a gravity-fed line, and it is supposed to always move down. You can see this one makes a loop down and then back up. That's not good. And then we got some corrosion going on at the water shutoff. This is an indication that we have had a leak, and probably it's leaking periodically. So this is a sediment trap for the water heater gas line, and it's installed improperly. What we should do is we should have the gas change direction so that any sediment falls into this pipe and the clean gas goes into the water heater, much like this example picture. As you can see, the gas changes direction, and all that's going to end up in that pipe is going to be the sediment, and then clean gas goes into the appliance. What we have here is a bathroom exhaust fan, and it is terminating over into the soffit. This isn't up to current standards. They need to go completely to the exterior of the home. Moving on to the furnace, we have the same thing going on with the sediment trap, but also the flex line enters the cabinet for the furnace, and that shouldn't be happening either. Now let's talk about framing for a second. This is called a purlin, and it's not properly supported and not properly sized. By current standards, it should be supported every 4 feet and be the same size as the rafters. The rafters are 6 inch, that purlin's 4, and this rafter is split. Now there's one issue with this house that is definitely going to be heavily notated in the report, and that is the existence of galvanized water piping. Galvanized water piping is a steel water pipe that has a zinc coating. The problem is the minerals in our water eat away at the zinc. It's got about a 50-year lifespan, give or take, but it can be problematic before then. So with these pipes being nearly 40 years old, it's not really a matter of if it's going to fail, it's a matter of when. Some things to look out for with galvanized water piping is rusty colored water, because it can tend to rust from the inside out. Also, you can have a drop in pressure when you're running multiple fixtures, and pinhole leaks are a serious problem. Now you might be asking, how do I know if I have galvanized water piping? Well, it can be a little bit difficult to tell if you're not familiar because sometimes they paint it, such as the case here. Now I know by looking at it by the size, but there's multiple different types of metal pipe. However, the only type of metal water piping that a magnet will stick to is galvanized. So that's one good way to check it out. While we're on the subject of plumbing, let's talk about these accordion style flexible lines underneath the sinks. This is at best a DIY repair that should be considered temporary, not permanent. Not only do they clog easy, but they don't hold up well to products that clean drains like Drano. Another thing I noticed was a moldy-like dusty substance coming from around a lot of the air supply registers. This likely indicates that we have some poorly sealed ducting to these supply registers, cool air is leaking out, and condensation is forming on the outside of these supply registers. I'm currently not a mold inspector, so I can't speak to the toxicity of this substance, but we definitely need someone from HVAC to seal up these ducts. All right, now while that's not all I found on this house, that's all I'm gonna put in this video because I got a lengthy report to write. A house like this, an older house, takes a while to get that report together. So I'm gonna work on this, but you guys give me a call so I can inspect your next house. Matt with Texas Edge Home Inspections, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye now.